Welcome everybody to our November meeting of NMSR, New Mexicans for Science and Reason. I'm Dave Thomas, the president, and we expect our vice president to log in at some point. Tonight's guest is Karl Reineke. We were schoolmates back in the day at New Mexico Tech. And so he has since he's residing up in Corrales, and he's picked up astrophotography
Cetus.
as a Placitas. I'm sorry,
There you go.
That's corn is in
We'll get there.
Corrales. Yeah, Placitas. If you could tell us what you did after New Mexico Tech and how you got interested in astrophotography. Karl Reineke, everyone.
Hello, everyone. I'm Karl Reineke. I graduated tech in 1977. Went to Arizona for my graduate degree and then headed east to make my living as a chemist. Putting this project together tonight, presentation together tonight, I've got it all recorded. Reminds me of my first process that I actually put in a plant. They thought they were going to computer design it and push a button and the thing was going to run, right? I told them, don't do that, which is kind of what I'd done tonight. 15 seconds in, I pushed the stop button on the computer program. We never turned it on again. So I hope we don't do that tonight, but we'll see. In 1919, what year is this? 2017, I retired from New York to Placitas. Wow, we've got a real fuzzy dude here now. And bought a DSLR. I had some film photography experience, which has come in very handy in this, but bought my first DSLR at the suggestion of someone who's attending tonight. Bob, how you doing? And some pictures of, Placitas is gorgeous. It's a Bortle 4 or 5, and Bortle means light pollution, and it goes up to 10. So we're pretty good here if I stay away from Rio Rancho. And but I was really dissatisfied with taking a DSLR pictures because you're limited in the exposure length and so forth. And I just bought a scope and a mount and just went a bit crazy. And in 2 years, I've got 7 scopes and 4 mounts and a lot of pictures and a lot of fun. So do I start, Dave?
Yes. Give us your spiel on astrophotography.
Yeah. Okay. Dave asked me to do this. He said, you got an hour. I said, what? And because there's so much to it. And I have pre-recorded it. And I said, I asked for an hour and a half. So if that's too long, bail, because I hope I make it under an hour and a half. But I've recorded it because there's so many things that can go wrong. I talk about them. I will try to interject so that you're not just watching the video go by. Ask questions. I don't know. Can you type me questions or?
Yeah, it's called the chat. So there's
you can chat me questions, and I'll interrupt at the next decent place. Or if you just say, wait, stop, I'll push the stop button on the computer program and we'll proceed from there. I'm not taught this. I've done a lot of presentations, but I've not taught astrophotography. I've only been doing it for about 18 months now. But leaps and bounds of learning. So let's get started. Now, I guess you see, here we go. I assume everybody's seeing this.
No, we are not.
No, the sharing isn't working.
Yep, yep.
Yeah,
I
share
just
your screen
realized that. I'm sorry. You're right.
and
I
don't
didn't
forget
share my
the
screen.
audio.
We'll get it. That's my
Right.
bad.
Well, while you're doing that, I see Frank Etzkorn, our last speaker, is in the house. Looks
Yeah,
like I had here.
thank you,
And so
Christine.
our newsletter has a little description of Frank's talk last time. And that just came out today.
I'm going to have to find what I was doing now.
You're gonna share screen.
Yeah, I
And
will.
don't forget to click that
Yeah,
little
yeah,
sound
yeah. I just
icon on the
started
lower.
off wrong. I'm as nervous as a porcupine in a balloon factory, man.
Remember how nervous Crosby, Stills, and Nash were at Woodstock. It was their first gig.
Told you what would happen.
Okay.
I'm back. Share screen. We practiced this and I just spaced
Yeah,
it
wait,
right
wait a
out.
minute.
This is multiple
And
participants.
so probably just go for your desktop, but make sure that the sound checkbox is on.
I didn't get a dialog box, Dave.
Yeah.
Go to my
Try it again. Are
desktop.
you in the Zoom screen where you see a bunch of people looking at you?
Yeah, up along the
So on
top.
the bottom, it should be
I see
a bright green button, share screen. So
share up
click on
there.
that.
I click. Yep. Got it. All right.
Excellent. Excellent. You've started. Excellent. Here we go.
A result. We aren't ready for results yet. All right, we're going to start this again. We're going to start with a cool poem by a young lady named El Cordova. She was Reina del Cid to start with. So we're going to start now.
Before the Big Bang, there was no up, there was no down, there was no side to side.
There was no up, there was no down, there was no side to side. There was no light, there was no dark, nor shape of any kind. There were no stars or planet Mars or protons to collide. There was no up, there was no down, there was no side to side. And furthermore, to underscore this total lacking state, there was no here, there was no there, because there was no space. And in this endless void, which can't be thought of as a place, there was no time, and so no passing minutes, hours, days. Of all the paradoxes that belabor common sense, I think this one's the greatest, this time before events. Because how did we get from nothing to infinitely dense, from immeasurably small to inconceivably immense? But before we get unmoored from the question at the start, let's take a breath and marvel at when math becomes an art. Because we don't have to understand it to know there was a time when there was no up, there was no down, there was no side to side.
So I find that an amazing poem by an amazing young lady. So I talked earlier about my film in the days of, that's how I have some familiarity with cameras and stuff. And I have kind of a comfortable with learning a lot of new programs, and we'll go through those programs later, but they get very complicated. PixInsight is an amazingly powerful program that still haven't stopped learning on. In astrophotography, there's a 500 rule, and the 500 rule says if you divide the 500 by the focal length of your lens, that's how many seconds you can take a picture without tracing of the stars. The stars will stay still for that long. Really, it's the Earth that's staying still. But you can take, say, if you got a 10mm lens, you can take a 50-second photo. But with a 10mm lens, about all you can take is the Milky Way. And you can take a very nice picture of the Milky Way with a 10mm lens. But you get to a 500mm lens, now you're talking 1 second, and that doesn't work too well. So with the longer focal lengths that we use in astrophotography, that means you got to have a tracking mount. The tracking mount does its best to correct for the spinning of the Earth in 2 dimensions, declination and right ascension. But to get to the longer exposure times that I've used, up to 10 minutes for 1 exposure, you really have to track, and you have to track with, you have to guide, I'm sorry. I'll use tracking and guiding interchangeably, and I shouldn't. Guiding, which will hold that scope with a second scope and a second camera right on the target. And if you're doing it well, you get nice round stars, and if you don't, you get oblong stars. We'll see both kinds. So we're gonna talk about some equipment and try to get through it quickly here, and this will all, we'll see some more stills before we get to some videos here. So everybody, oh, there we go. So this mount is an equatorial mount. It's got a go-to system on it, which means that I can tell it where to go and it goes. That's what the little hand control will do, but in reality, I plug them all into a computer and tell that how to do it. This is the Skywatcher EQM 35 Pro. It's got a 22-pound capacity, and mounted on it is my 102mm refractor. And it's got, from back in the day, a DSLR on it rather than a dedicated astronomy camera. Talk about cameras momentarily. We can get started on them. The DSLRs are pretty good, but they can be pretty noisy. They have a filter on them that you can remove that filters out UV and IR. If you take that out, you have a much broader range, but the noise is terrible, and using calibration frames, all of this will make a little more sense as we move through. Is much more complicated with a DSLR. You can't cool a DSLR. I cool my cameras to -15, and takes away a lot of the noise. We'll see what that means in a little while. Where are we? Okay. Good, move forward a little bit. It's good that we move through a little faster. This is my 6-inch refractor, 6 inches in aperture size. It has a 1216mm focal length. That tiny little thing on it is the guiding scope. All right, cheer. And I don't use that on it now. I use a much larger guiding scope. And again, I have a DSLR there. This mount will hold up to 44 pounds. When you're doing astrophotography, they recommend that you use no more than 50% of the capacity of the mount. In reality, I'm right at about 75% with this setup, but it tracks wonderfully. And in case you're wondering, we can talk about costs. I hate to talk too much about costs, but the unit we will be using tonight and you will be seeing later comes out to about 10 grand total. and that's mount, scope, everything. The scope here is about $5,000. The mount here is about $2,000. So it's not a cheap hobby. But I am not also using the most expensive equipment. Takahashi, my understanding, makes some really high class glass, but Explore Scientific does a pretty good job, and you'll see I get some pretty nice pictures. The higher end mounts, this is a $2,000 mount. They can go for $10,000 to $15,000 for a mount. I'm not going to do that. I'm having too much fun with what I already have, and it works quite well. This is my 11-inch Celestron mounted on, which is about $5,000, mounted on a heavy-duty tripod. And this scope has actually blown over in the wind, hit the Bonko on the edge. Believe it or not, this thing weighs like 130 pounds, but the wind blew it over. And it now has about a 6-inch dent in it, and it doesn't even care. It operates perfectly. The mount, on the other hand, is a bit finicky. I like the Skywatcher mounts better than this, if you ask me. This has a 78-pound capacity on this mount, which is awesome. It could actually hold the 14-inch, which weighs 58 pounds all by itself, and I'm too old for that. So this is about the biggest scope that I can handle at my young age of 35. Let's see, this one is great for the planetary imaging and galaxies, which are a lot further away. The 152 6-inch is perfect for nebula and stuff, which are within our galaxy, much closer, much brighter. And coming up here, got to move forward if I can. This tiny little guy is my Daystar 60mm solar scope. And it's only 60 millimeters, but the sun's really close and it's really bright. So it has filter in it that cuts down the light. And I haven't talked about f-stop, but f-stop is something from photography. And the higher the f-stop, the less the light it lets through. So this has an f-stop of about 15. My C11 has an f-stop of about 10. The 152 with a flattener reducer on it has an f of about 7 or 6.4. So that's getting into the speed of a regular camera lens at 6.4. Planetary, you want it out about 15. So you put a double, you do a lot of things to get the planetary. I don't want to dwell on planetary tonight. We're going to do a nebula later, and they're nice and bright, and they respond well to processing, and it makes you feel real good when you get a nice picture of it. So, we've covered the equipment fairly well. Anybody got any questions on the equipment? Okay.
So you mentioned the declination and right ascension. Those are like star coordinates that are pretty much
Or southeast west, sort of. Yeah.
they're constant. Does it vary during well, of course it varies during the year. Does it vary during the day also? For like Sirius, does it have
They all move at the same rate. I mean, because it's the Earth moving. So
Yeah.
the stars are far enough away that the scope
you were gonna
tries to go ahead.
if you were gonna spot Sirius by entering its declination and right ascension, would you just look that up in the stellarium or for that particular?
We're gonna see all of that shortly. And
Okay,
the coordinates of the stars are set no matter what time of day it is. That has no influence on it. Those coordinates are not relative. You enter the coordinates and it will find that even if it's pointing down to the ground because it's on the other side of the earth.
oh, cool.
So you have to be careful about that. Typically, I'll show you how you get there. You typically find the object in stellarium, send the scope there so you know it's visible before you send it there, if that's
Yeah,
what you're
good.
asking. It's all really nighttime. And I can't remember it right now. The program we use is amazing. So that's my observatory out in Placitas. In the background is the 11-inch. This is really what we're going to use tonight. You can see we've got a second scope here. That's the guider. And what it does is you'll see a lot about this later. I'll mount this later, you'll see. And this is the 11-inch, and this is my solar scope. Both of these are pointing at the North Star. This one's pointing at the sun because that's what we do.
Cool.
Cameras, we talked a little about DSLR. Dedicated astronomy cameras, there are two kinds. There are color OSC cameras, one-shot color. That's what I use. It takes each pixel takes, it's like the cones in your eyes. Each pixel will do a red, a green, or a blue, and then it's all combined just like the pixels in your eyes, not the pixels, the cones in your eyes. But there are mono cameras, and they require, if you're going to shoot an hour's data, you shoot an hour with red, you shoot an hour with green, you shoot an hour with blue, and you shoot an hour with luminance. So it takes you 4 times as long to shoot 1 hour's total data that I can take in an hour with a one-shot color. The downside is the loss of sensitivity. The monochromes are much more sensitive, but I've gone one-shot color and I'm not going to change the filters, the wheels that you have to put filter wheels in. I've already got 5 or 6 cameras, and it is the next step, but I don't think I'll make that step. So tonight's imaging train is this one. We've got the 152 millimeter on top. On top of it is the Astrotech 60 millimeter. Both of these are refractors. There are flatteners. A refractor bends the light, so you have to put a refractor shines the light right through the glass. A reflector, this is a reflector, bounces it off a mirror. So the bent light will give bent stars on the edge unless you flatten the image. This is the mount, and I am going to mount the system on right now. And you can see why you don't want to have to do this too often. I would hate to drop that. It has to slide in. On the back up here is a little, I realized in a moment that I'm in the way. I will get out of the way shortly. I see a cloud. It's so rare. Okay, see, I realized I was in the way. All right, so there it is. On the back is my dedicated astronomy camera. Really, it's just a sensor with a cooler on it. And what I'm doing now is balancing it in the right ascension. So the counterweights on the bottom, I would use them if I had to change it, but I use this so often, I don't have to do that. That's my neighbor complaining. No, that's my dog. He'll stop in a moment. So this is a little guider scope. It's a 60 millimeter refractor. You can also use it to take wide view pictures of huge areas of space as opposed to the smaller area that this is a 1216 millimeter. It has a reducer flattener right here that takes it down to 972 millimeters at f6.4. This is a little autofocuser. This also has a flattener on it. So with all of these attachments and stuff, this system is about 10 grand. It's a really nice system. It operates beautifully. I use this. It's my workhorse. Does anybody else see this one weird pink line up here?
Here, it looks like somebody scribbled it. Oh,
Yeah.
no, Zoom has like note taking
Oh.
and black and whiteboards and stuff. You might have turned on the whiteboard.
Maybe I did. Okay, so that whole system weighs about 32 pounds. The capacity of this is about 44 pounds. That's 73%. The rule of thumb says 50%. This works just fine. So I can actually put the C11 on this mount and it'll work. So I balanced it in both directions. I'm going to attach the cords. This system has 27 separate connections that have to make connections for the system to run. The first hour is usually making sure all the connections work. You get to know the pattern of which connection has failed if the camera disconnects. Sometimes the camera disconnects, which disconnects the scope, and that's the hardest part of acquisition, is making the thing run. The electrical connections. Whoa, what happened there? Hey, dude, go away. All right. The scope on top has a focal length of 366. The scope on the bottom has a focal length of 972. It's about 3:1, and that's the rule of thumb for guide scopes, is about 1/3, so that your field of view isn't too far off from the field of view of your bigger scope. So with the C11 at 2800 millimeters, I would have to use if I did by 3, that's 900 millimeter guide scope. I'd have to try to mount this on it. So instead of doing that, what you do is you capture a small amount of the light from the main scope, direct it to a second camera, and so your guide scope is actually the same focal length. It's kind of a cute trick. All right. We're gonna move on through here. Suffice it to say that, all right, we'll show you the balance on the declination side. All the cords report to all the USB ports report to a powered USB hub, to a cord that runs into the house, and I sit comfortably in.
So this is the acquisition portion.
Hold it, Carl.
Just fine. The acquisition.
Okay. We're going to go into acquisition. This is following right along. We take the frame acquisition, we do lights, which are the actual exposures. And I'm going to I'm just going to go ahead and play it. Hopefully I explain it to you.
is the Gremlins Playground.
Let's start that over.
Did this recording last night. I was using a different computer than I usually use for the rig that I'm running, and I had all sorts of problems. We will see how tonight goes, but I suspect it will go just fine because a lot of the settings on this computer are set up in the various programs for this
This is
rig.
Pixen's site,
That is
by the way. Oh, I'm sorry.
EQR6 Pro
Nina,
mount, and
stop it. Talking over myself. Nighttime and imaging and astronomy. This is freeware. It is powerful. It controls Stellarium, which Dave already referred to. We'll see that in a little bit, very shortly. It controls the mount. It controls the camera. It'll do live stacking through Pixen's site, so it connects all three of those. It connects PHP-Do, which is the guiding program, and it's free. It's amazing that there's these small groups of people out there that are just so into this, that they do this for us idiots out here doing this. So let's move on.
the 152 refractor, and you saw me putting it on the mount in an earlier video, but that's what we're using tonight. So this will only let me record a module, and then I have to turn the recording off to switch to another module. So each time I do that, you may not notice it very badly because I will then stitch all of the little pieces together and hopefully see a good video. But in any regards, here we are in Nina, which is a free program. Surprisingly, I have donated because I use it so heavily. And it ties Stellarium, which
I'm
is
repeating
the
myself.
planetary software, excuse me, with PixInsight for live stacking. The Stellarium is for finding all the things we want to look at. And then Nina runs the sequence that captures the light frames, which are the exposures, then flats, and other calibration frames. We'll talk about each one of them as we use them, both in acquiring them and using them in pre-processing and post-processing. In any event, right now we're in PixInsight. The first thing you want to do is to do a polar alignment. All right, nothing is connected. It's telling me that. So I'll go back here, go to the camera. I've got this all ready to go, so it should connect, and we will cool to minus 15, not minus 10.
And I'm sitting inside while doing
On
this.
down the line, we have
not
a
outside.
focuser on this.
Very comfy.
I have already done the autofocusing, and I'll show you that graph. We have to connect. Now you didn't even see the box that opened up because it's not part of Nina. And I clicked on a couple of things over here, and it will then allow me to connect, but unfortunately you don't see it because it's on a different program. It thinks I'm playing a game and I'm recording a game. I don't record my games. But in any event, and then the guider. The guider is a second scope. You could see it in the video. It's the little white scope. On top, it has a second camera. We will show you what it does in a bit. But really, the mount tracks at a given rate according to in declination and in right ascension to keep something in frame to compensate for the movement of the Earth. The apparent thing is that the constellations go up and then they go down. And you'll see that a little later on a graph that Nina has available. So let's get started. First thing we're going to do is we're going to do what's called polar align. This lets the scope know where it's at, and
Whoever this guy is,
worry about
he's
a lot
really
of the
slow.
detailed settings. But suffice it to say, I've pre-focused. This ought to just immediately, it's going to take a picture. I am pointing at the North Pole, by the way. That's kind of home.
The
You
North
see
Pole
this turn
star.
green? That's because it solved that and went out to the database and says, I know where this star field is. It moves 10 degrees and does it again. And we hope it turns green. It did. And it'll do it a third time, which is why it's called 3-point polar alignment. Those 3 points define a plane, and then it can find its coordinates from that. All the coordinates of all the stars. All right, so it would be awesome if both of those were under 1 arc minute, but it really is awful close. So we're going to just accept that. We are aligned. And now, so I have pre-focused. I'll show you that. When you get a curve, it moves that focuser a set amount and comes up with 8204 with a 96% hyperbolic coefficient. And so it went to 8204, and it did play it. It did the 3-point polar alignment just fine, which means it was in at least decent focus. So I'm going to turn this off and join you in Stellarium. All right, I finally got Stellarium to work on the recording, and hopefully we are recording. I will check in a moment. Anyway, here we are in Stellarium, and it shows everything, all the stars, all the nebula, and this is where our telescope Polaris, and we are going to go to the Veil Nebula. That was a search, and that's up here. And we're going to do the East Veil Nebula. Now, if I click on here,
When this
I
is
get a
all done, you're going to see how
representation
easy this is.
of my telescope, which is the 152 at 972 millimeters and 152 millimeter aperture. The sensor is my 2600. This is the size of the sensor, and I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees to get this framed. And so we will say we would like to go right there. Current object, slew. And if I back up, you can see that the scope is out there and it's moving. Now, as it moves, all those cables have to go with it. And sometimes that will unplug a cable, it'll pinch a cable, all sorts of strange things. So here we are.
Cable
Now, I don't
management is an
actually
issue.
know if the camera is at 90 degrees or not. But then here we are back in Nina. We will go over to imaging. This is the image tab. And plate solving. Go ahead and expand this a little bit. Now, what it'll do is it'll take a picture. And solve it. And you can see it says 284 degrees. So that is actually minus 90 degrees. So this should line right up. And it's a little faint, but there it is. And it likes that, but I don't. I don't know if you can see that. The best way to check that is to come over. Let's give it a 30-second exposure. Oh, I see. Here we need to go to the camera. We're going to set it at 275. 200 gain, 75 default. I have a narrow band filter on here, and so it has a, you have to pump things up a little bit to get a decent picture.
Gain is similar to
Take a look at
ISO.
this and you'll see it's kind of faint right now. This will probably show it a whole lot. Oh, I've still got the gain set at 100. You'll see there. Oh, that's pretty nice, but it's actually
Single picture.
not where we want it to be. So what we're going to do is we are going to just nudge it, and I'm going to just try a direction. We'll hit it there, east a touch. This isn't the technical way to do it, but it works. The reason, the better way to do it would be to do it in Stellarium, but because of the recording vagaries, I don't want to switch back and forth too much, so we will do it this way. We're just going to frame it a little better. East is whoa, I guess we should track.
I left some of this in just so.
What we can tell
you
is
can see.
that didn't move up. It looks like it moved down. So we'll go back over to the scope control.
I didn't tell it to stop tracking.
Alright, here we go. That looks really good. So, over to sequence. There's two types of sequences. There's the old type, which is the one I like to use. We'll get back to it. And there's an advanced sequencer that it's got a ton of stuff you can do with it. I've not really mastered that. So we're going back to...
I have found that you can line up a night's worth of imaging, and as soon as you close your eyes, the whole thing goes haywire. So the advanced sequencing is a pipe dream as far as I'm concerned. The simple one, line it up, set an alarm for yourself in the middle of the night to wake up if you're changing targets. Don't rely on the program.
The simple. We're going to pull those coordinates from Stellarium and label it the East Vale. I guess we'll give it a 3 because it might dig up some old data. And let's just try to stack it. 300 seconds, we have a narrowband filter, an Antlia RGB filter, and it only lets part of the light in, so you take long exposures. And we'll take this for an hour. It should be long enough to see what we're doing. I don't have a whole lot of interest in this except that it's very bright and works as a great experiment. All right. So we'll go over here to guiding. No, we won't do that. Actually, maybe we will. All right. I'm going to stop recording. See you in.
So here's the guider. And we'll, I don't know if you heard that. Here's the guider. And it will auto-select a star. And it will center on that star and hold that star in place by moving the scope, yeah, the mount, which moves the scope. And you can see that we're doing pretty well. Right now it's about 2 arc seconds. That's not terrible. When the dither throws that off, if I clear it away, you can see that it's doing quite well. 0.4. But when it dithers, it can cause some deviation, and it takes a little while to catch back up. But that's what that's all the guider does.
All right. We're back in Nina. And the scope is guiding. We go to imaging. You can see the guider is working, and it's working quite well. We'll go back over here. We have said we will do this for an hour. So go ahead and start. And we are exposing. 5-minute exposures, 12 of them. That'll be an hour. If we go back over here, we'll click on PixInsight, live stacking. PixInsight will fire up here in a minute. You probably don't see that. You might. I'll
You don't.
close it. So we're back over here. Now we'll close this out, this out, this out, and display the sequence. Get rid of the focuser. Alright, we're in Nina. We've got one frame that has arrived into the PixInsight live stacking. You'll notice that it's blue. That's because the filter kind of gives it that tinge. I just clicked do an ABE. Yes, ABE means automatic background extraction. Down here is the signal to noise ratio. Right now it's 0.76. And stacking improves the signal to noise ratio. It really doesn't improve the amplitude, but rather it improves the contrast. And in addition, we are dithering, which means to move the scope a tiny bit each time. And I put that in here to dither. We are 200 gain, 75 offset. The the cameras operate the best if you imagine each pixel being a well. It operates best if that well is almost completely full. You don't necessarily want to do that with gain, because that can introduce a little with gain alone, because that being it's like ISO, it'll heat the detector up a little bit more at a higher gain, give you more noise. Offset sort of partially fills that well, so then it takes less photons to fill the well with gain. And all of this is supposed to give you a lower noise, higher signal to noise ratio.
I hope we're all geeks.
So we're just taking a moment here. This is going to give us a second one. It'll stack. You'll see the decrease in the error. You'll see the blue go away, and the color of mostly the right color of the very bright nebula shine through. Look at that guider though, 1 arc second. That means that scope isn't moving at all.
And this is at
we ought to have
75% of the
very round
capacity.
stars, and they're looking pretty round. A little bit vignetted, which means, yeah, they aren't all that round, are they? We will see what happens. So this has a flattener on it, and this is a refractor, so the light goes through and bends, and it can give what they call vignetting, which is this stretching on the edges, and the flattener is supposed to take care of that. Really, this will probably all look pretty good when it's all said and done, but we will see. Alright, here comes the second one. You can see down here it's debayering, which is converting from grayscale to RGB, which every pixel has got a color. It's kind of crazy. You can actually zoom in and see the pixels. See these little hot spots. That's what dithering gets rid of. If we didn't dither, that hot spot would just build and build and build and build. But by dithering, we average those out. All right, we've gone down 15% on our signal to noise ratio, which is very cool. And you can see the colors. The blue has gone away. All right, we're going to let this go for a while, and we'll be back.
So I'm going to go ahead and line up a second target just to show you how that's done. I'm in Stellarium again and set it for an hour. Excuse me. So Stripe showed up again because there was a real gremlin in the system. I recorded shooting for the top half and the bottom half of the Seven Sisters. The recording didn't take place. So the previous night I had recorded lining up a second one just to show how you enter it into the sequence, and I used the wizard instead. So I'm lining up the wizard, but here in a minute you're going to see me talk about the Seven Sisters, and I just don't want you to be confused. Is this working for everybody so far? Quiet. Okay. From now.
Good.
Doing fine. What else? Then we can line something up. Cocoon. So you can just go hunting. Go ahead and line the wizard. You don't have to know where it's at. Wizard is a favorite. So we'll mark that. Right. So we've marked the wizard. I'm going to have to stop.
Okay, we're back in Nina, and I have marked in Stellarium, the first of those two targets.
Leave.
So I will do that. And it pulled the Maya, I don't know. Oop, that wasn't right. Yeah, well, it put it here. We'll do that. And then we'll pull it. We will go back here and rename this East Vale. I think it was 3. I can check. Yes. And it snuck one in there. Okay. What we're going to do is we are going to say, or tell it, to slew to the target, center on the target, and start guiding. And then you can see that we have, this is called the meridian. Very few mounts can, one of mine, the big mount, can go a little bit past the meridian. This mount really can't get close to the meridian. Too close to it or the tracking goes a little haywire. And you got to flip the scope clear around to come down that side. Some of the high-end mounts, they'll do it fine, but not the ones I have. So you have to watch out for that. So we will set this for 300 seconds. Still a nebula. Stars. We'll try 300 seconds. That might be kind of bright for that, but we will try it. 24. So that says we will end at, that's 2 hours. 22:41. Yeah. And then, okay, I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to line the next one up and be back. Okay, we're back over in Nina. I've got Pleione as the central point of that next target. What we have to do is watch out for the meridian. Look at an hour, 23:45. Look at 18. Oh, all right. What we're doing now is we've finished the hour's worth of data on the East Vale, and it is slewing to the Maya Nebula.
The only way you can tell that is the circle on the Maya.
Of my
You
first
can't see the
piece of
dialogue.
mosaic. So you can tell things are working quite well tonight. Come back over here. You can you probably can see that. Anyway, you can see how much we've gone improved by 50% the signal to noise ratio by stacking just 12 pictures. So you can't see this, but there's a window right here. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. Couldn't last night. That is showing the plate solving of that
I apologize
Maya
for this.
Nebula. And there you can see the stars. Yeah, it looks fine. Looks like it lined right up. And boom. You should start guiding. All right, it's the following morning. We can see what we did last night. Yeah, that's nothing.
So we skipped all night there. I turned it off, fell asleep. We collected. I tried to collect all of these different 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different targets, and let's see how it worked.
So there's our East Vale, the top half of Seven Sisters, bottom half, and you can see what happened here. I really only took 12 pictures, but by not changing the name, it drug up something from the cache. I'm not sure how to fix that, but you can see it added 68 images. I didn't take 68. The same, it didn't happen here, but it looks like this may have been out of focus a little bit. We'll see. But what we're going to do now is we're going to take flats. I have put a light panel over the end that provides diffuse light.
Right.
And what we do, go to statistics, imaging, or imaging, and
I'm sorry, folks.
I think it's 0.3.
So yeah, you need to be watching over here. There we go.
This is supposed to be right around 25. That's right where we are. Now, if I look here, you can see there's some fringing here, some dust spots. There are 4 different kinds of calibration frames. And flats are extremely important. We'll go through it. All right, flats allow you to calculate the correction factor for each pixel so that they all give the same value. Dust motes, lens vignetting, stuff like that. You take the flats and it removes all of that. It'll remove all of this around the edges. It'll remove these dust motes. They're kind of faint, but you can see them. Darks are the thermal noise, and I have a library of darks that I built for each camera, and it's good for a long time. And the level of it is magnified by 3 things: the temperature, the exposure time, and ISO. And it says here, we don't can see that just in an hour.
Skipping over some of it. I'm afraid people are going to get bored here.
50% drop. I think we went through that last night. This one, 70%. That's amazing. That was 2 hours or an hour and a half. Pretty crazy. So, back over to here. Rosette didn't work.
Suffice it to say, I took some flats. We have a whole lot. We're going to go to pre-chosen. Working with the data now. Process icons. We have a whole lot of processes that this thing will run.
So,
data, and this will be the data that we collected the other night. Okay, this is all the light frames from that night. So we go to the top, first one. Oh, yeah. Okay. I've already moved in any event what I can do. I'll show you what I did. You follow, this is the top half of the Seven Sisters. So you would select it. And you would say, I want to move those to Pleiades 1. Select that folder. You'll see the importance of blank here in a minute. Pleiades 1. There they are. All right. So then you can go through and you can, if there's really bad, I don't know if we'll find any, but there was a, if you look, see, you go through it there. That's a bad frame. You could kick that out. You know, if there's any real bad there, okay. You could, all those, when the mount hit a meridian while I was sleeping, you got to get rid of those. So you get rid of those. You do that all through blank. Okay, so once you've selected all your things, you go to weighted batch. We're going to start seeing me do the WBPP, the magical stuff, and it less frustrating all stuff. Of these processes, integration of flats, darks, calibration of flats with the darks. I don't use bias frames and so forth, and we'll show you that here.
Yeah, I've got a question.
Okay, so this is preloaded with the data from that night on the East Vale Nebula. And when I run it, it is just going to blast right through it unless, okay, we're going to go dark.
I think Tom had a question.
Yeah. Flats. That, make it do that again. Who's got a question?
Yeah, this is Tom. Hey, I noticed you did live stacking when you were in Nina using PixInsight, and now you're going and restacking using the weighted batch preprocessor. Could you?
Yeah, I don't use the live stack for anything except to make sure that the signal to noise is going down.
Okay, I was going to ask if you could, I know you don't use it, but could you take that live stack and process that in PixInsight?
Don't know how.
So doing all the operations on it that you would do post stacking. I just wondered.
Yeah, whether you can do it to the stack. See, what we do is you'll see here. Have you used this yet, Tom?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it does a lot of stuff to each frame before it stacks them. And the stacking program just stacks the raw data. So I'm not sure you're going to come out with the same result.
Yeah,
I'll kick a few frames out because it's, you know, that stacking program is not very selective. It stacks basically everything. And this one will measure the frames, kick the ones out that have trailing or whatever. The wind came up. and it corrects each frame with the flat. It corrects the flats with the darks, and then the corrected flats correct the frames, and then you measure, and it'll kick things out as it moves along, and the other one doesn't do that.
Okay. Yeah, I wondered. Thank you for the explanation.
Yeah. And then maybe this will do what we want. All right, so I seem to be
Calibration.
whispering. You do what's called a automatic pedestal, and you do a cosmetic correction. And these are all things I've pulled off of various YouTube tutorials, and we've already selected where we're going to store it. There we go. And I'm going to erase. Come on, Carl. Run for a little while. We will be back. Is that the way we want to do this? Yeah. So this thing is doing an insane amount of calculating right now. So while this is finishing off, I'm going to run through some of the computer stuff that I use. Well, I think we're coming up on a cool place here. All right, so we need to generate a reference for normalization. And what we have here is we have 11 of the 12 frames. It kicked one of the frames out. It didn't really. So what it's going to do is it's going to integrate 4 of the best frames just to generate a reference. So we're going to say generate. I have 2 acquisition computers, one for each setup that I try to run every night, or when I run, I try to run 2 rigs every night that I run. And then this computer is my processing computer. I have in this computer a 4 terabyte hard drive. I think there's 6 total terabytes in this computer. I have an external 4 terabyte hard drive that I move the data files from the acquisition computers to this computer. Also, I have an 18 terabyte external hard drive for backup. This stuff is insanely intensive on storage space, and it's also hard on CPUs. It would take forever for this to run on a normal CPU. All 3 of my computers are gaming computers, and I run CUDA, C-U-D-A, which is a program that allows the designated programs to use the higher power graphics unit on these gaming computers to do the calculations, and it cuts the calculation time down tremendously. By a factor of about 10. But not enough that I won't be turning this off while I don't think I have much more to say right now while it calculates. All right, we're back. It has integrated those 4 frames, and this is the reference. I'll select it. You can see what has happened here. all the procedures we've gone through. Measured, it didn't kick any out. Wonder where it kicked one out. There were only 11. Anyway, didn't see one kicked out. So DeBayer's, after correcting and calibrating, DeBayer, remember, converts from, I think I mentioned this earlier, grayscale to RGB somehow. The measures it rejects bad frames according to the measurements, selects a reference frame, and then its plate solves that reference frame. That's for use later in assigns all the coordinates to the entire sequence. It registers them, which means it aligns the stars. Then it does local normalization, which is down at the pixel level. Takes a reference. You saw us generate the reference, and then it compares them all to that reference. Now it'll integrate auto crop, and we will have the raw material to process. Stop recording again. This is called pre-processing, taking all the data, jamming it all into one completely corrected image that then we will process. See, this is only taking about 20 minutes. Without the GPU, that used 12 frames, probably would have taken an hour. I did 400 frames and it took 12 hours. Very interesting to watch the dialogue in the upper left to see what it's doing. Okay. Okay. Everything succeeded. That doesn't happen all the time. Many times it will kick one or two out up here. This is in a lot of frames. But yeah, everything went through and the entire calculation took 20 minutes to do all of those things to 12 frames, and we will see the results. Go over to the processing. So we've got calibrated frames, cosmetically corrected frames, DeBayered frames, registered frames, and master frames. The master frame gives us two windows, which I will stretch so we can see it. Not a whole lot there, so it didn't cut much out. This then is the nebula, and it is in blue because of the filter we used. There are two different ways. The preferred way of doing the background extraction is this way. You set this And then you generate some samples. Because it's blue, it's kind of fun to, we can change that to yellow. Does that help? Not a whole lot. All right. You can see that some of these you probably can't. This is very close to the nebula. We do not want to subtract the nebula. So what we want to do is we want to take, and this takes a while, all of the ones out that are close to the nebula. And we can always manually add a few. We're not supposed to put them on stars, but I don't think that matters all that much. And we will say, run it. I think Dave's falling asleep. Wake up, Dave. Close it. Yes. Go back over and do what we call a linear stretch. I thumped him, will he wake up? All right. Pretty nice. Quickly now, we will do, this module is RC Astro, and the RC is the initials of the guides. If you haven't bought these modules, you should. You have to pay for a lot of things. It's all preset, and all I have to do is drag that onto there. This is kind of work.
Yes, I bought those modules.
Certainly the end result.
Initializer.
I swear I skipped some of this. Want to tell me we're frozen. Don't do that. Camera. Okay, it's counting. Back. So you can see that it has finished. And
See that?
I will show you the magic that it performed by reversing it. You. So
Wow.
that's, it always amazes me. Stars went really small, and this sharpened up. You can go down in here. Somebody knows his math. All right. So what you see here is noise. And so we use a noise exterminator. This more magic. Take very long. That last one only took, actually it only took 6 minutes. That without GPU acceleration would have taken probably an hour. So it's good to do. We're getting there, folks.
Good.
Large data sets can still take 20, 30 minutes. I'll show you while it's doing that. I'll show you if we go into all right. Every time that thing throws, creates a exposure, it's 50 megabyte. When it's calibrated, each one becomes 102 megabyte. And I don't know, there's a lot of stuff there. cosmetized. Another 102. So this folder, done processing for one film, has 16 gigabytes. Only 12 images. A lot of data. Just the light frames aren't going to be revealing anymore. Anyway. Coyotes are howling. Went white because I went away. It'll come back. Oh, look at that. There it is. All right. See that? That's magic again. Undo it. Redo it. Pretty crazy. So, next thing we do, we have this, has all the stars are, and the coordinates are known. This process is called spectrophotometric color calibration, and it goes out to a database and calibrates the colors. This doesn't take very long either. Yes, you need an internet connection. Someone once said to me on a post, he's probably here tonight, there is no green in space. See the green? He is here. Part of the reason there's so much green is this is
Who in the hell said
RGTV.
that?
I don't know, Tom. And it didn't really get rid of all of that green, which I thought it would. There is another process. I don't think I can run it yet that will help adjust that. We'll adjust it a different way. Okay, we did that. So now we're going to use Star Exterminator. This is the most magic of all of these things. Values within the dialog box that in general I pulled from tutorials, YouTube tutorials. I've spent a lot of time with YouTube tutorials. A lot of YouTube tutorial for just about each processing step that I have gone through. And this is a simple, pretty simple, very bright nebula. But there are a lot of stars in the field. And we're going to take care of that right now.
I have a question. I missed some of the middle of your presentation, but so how, I mean, obviously there are colors in space because of whatever's a star is burning. So why isn't there green?
There aren't any elements that glow green when they're hit by sunlight.
But the red is accurate.
The red is hydrogen. Blue is oxygen 3. Play with them separately. Those are the two main ones.
I think an exception would be emission radiation, like the green comet actually was green.
That's correct. There are green galaxies, but there aren't green nebula. Call this starless. No green in nebulas. And we start working with it. Whoop! Did we see what happened there?
This is very impressive.
The stars just call this stars. Rip the stars right away. Minimize it. get it out of our way. Call this starless. And we start working with it. It's like some kind of monster, doesn't it? Very noisy.
Well, it's like a wave.
Yeah. Some people call it the Bat Nebula.
Let's try something.
It's got the body, the wing. Yeah, this is only 12 photos. It's only an hour of data. So background could be a little. Let's see what happens with this thought. And it takes 30 seconds.
I just can't get over the power of your software. It's just unbelievable.
Say again? Yeah.
I just can't get over your software. It's unbelievable.
It's amazing. And there's
Oh,
people out there that keep it updated, and you pay for it, but PixInsight's free. No, PixInsight's not free. PixInsight's $169 for your lifetime. No.
wow.
Okay. And I do use it.
Yeah.
I'll fix it a different way. Right. We are going to, up to this point, we have been linearly stretching that data. Notice there's nothing there. And if I thought really hard about physics, I might be able to come up with exactly what that means. But now we are going to go nonlinear, which is also referred to as astro stretching. And this is the way I like to do it in PixInsight. I chose the starless, and I just move that slider in. You can see it start to show up. Apply that. See, this is a preview. Reset it. Slide that up. When you move this in this direction, you can see the background gets a little darker. And you like to have that right about there. All three channels are lined up very well. We could lighten it up a little, add a little more. Call that good. All right. Now, you still see we got some yuckiness going on there. So we are going to do stretching. Now we're selectively stretching it. See, we're making the background a little darker by doing this. Oh. And now that looks fairly cool. If we take the histogram. Now the stars are not stretched, so we have to stretch the stars too. And I use it then to kind of select how many of the stars I'm going to show. And presumably, I'm taking the high end of the stars, which may be rounder. Oh, a couple of these. Now, I do not want to go back that far. This is where we are. I'm going to minimize stars. So there is, at this point, I could add it back. Not bad. Not bad, but look at that. No green in space. This is one way to get rid of it. It's SCNR. And remember, this is RGGB. So this gets rid of some of that G. Boom. We're blue. Okay. Pretty cool. So this isn't taking all that long, is it? So that'd be pretty cool to publish right there. There are a couple of other things that this insanely cool program will do. Is that we can go into scripts and into color mask. We'll do red. So now I'm actually separating the colors. This is the red. And I can apply the mask and enhance what colors I want to enhance and so forth. Green. Remember what I'm doing. The idea is to develop a workflow for yourself for nebula galaxies, clusters that you're comfortable with, and with little variations, you can deal with them all. Otherwise, you'll drive yourself crazy trying to make them right. Okay, we've made masks, and it's always kind of interesting. Here's what a yellow mask looks like.
You can record these
Magenta.
workflows and use them
There's
later,
no
right?
magenta. Cyan. There is cyan, but there isn't any blue. And there may not be green in space, but there's green in my picture. And there's red. So what do we do with these? Let's do the green first. I have applied the mask. Well, it's masked because the tab is brown. It's still masked, but I'm just not seeing the mask. And I take the curve, and this is where your imagination can go crazy if you want. You can, let's see, what color did I did green, right? We actually want to get the reduce the green. So here, let's no more green. Boom. Because it really should be blue. See, now it's blue. And see what it's doing here. So if I apply that a curve again, it'll even be more blue. Now, if we remove the mask, and let's take the cyan. See where that was? Oops. Preview. It's cyan, but the blue channel, I can pump it up. You can try these. That would have been purple. We don't want it purple. Blue, see? No purple in space either. C doesn't see. These are combinations, I think, and this is saturation. Do you want to oversaturate it? A little bit. Okay, so I'll apply that. Okay. Yeah. This is the yellow. To the internet and look at one and see how they did it. Let's go ahead and just apply that again. And that last one's probably a little too much, so take it away. All right. Except for the dog barking, we will call that a picture. Okay. All right. That's it. Now, has anybody got any questions?
Yeah, I had a comment earlier, more of a question, I guess, because I'm a beginner at this PixInsight thing. When you go through a workflow like that and you have, you've got all those processes you've saved off to the right-hand side of the screen, can you package those up and save it as a process and reuse it for the next nebula?
Let me go back in. The tutorials are really, there's only a specific tutorial that showed me how to do this, and I gotta move you. So see, there's nothing there now.
Right.
Now it's completely populated.
Ah, okay.
And I've got, this tab is for pre-processing. This tab is for processing. There are a variety of different tabs for doing different things. The way you do that, Tom, is you'll call up one of them, whatever, annotation, and you'll say, I want it. You can do whatever you want with it. And then you pull this off to the side. That now has the settings you put in for that module.
Okay.
And then when you apply it, it will do that. Those settings will apply. And you can save it with your icons.
Cool.
Oh, there's 3 chats. Bye, Austin. Okay, any other questions? So it's all that clear.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Karl. This was really educational.
I hope you all enjoyed it. It wasn't too boring.
Hey, Karl.
Yeah.
I actually sent you a question through chat, but I guess it didn't come through. It's probably simple, but how do you determine that sweet spot between exposure time and number of images to take?
Take as many I'm guessing you take as many images as you can possibly take. And your exposure time is just set by it's each individual one to get a decent individual frame to try to fill those pixels as good as you can. And then every other one after that looks just like that. And the more you take, the more data you have, and the easier this processing I just did is. Especially on like a real faint nebula. There are a couple out there, the Ghost Nebula, Angel Nebula, that I have so much data on, and I still haven't gotten to anything that I'm willing to post. It's it's interesting. We can.
Can you show us a few, I guess you're showing us a few examples of your
I
greatest
am.
hit? Excellent.
Yeah, I want to do it this way though. My astrophotos are in Astrophotography. What's going on? Why aren't I just seeing? Oh, here we go. And it is public. Anybody can go see this. You don't have to be my friend to go see it. Although if you go see it and like it, I'll probably friend you. So my astrophotography, my other posts are not public, but all of this is public, and you can go look at it if you'd like. It's under my name. So here's what the Seven Sisters look like. Pretty crazy. You never would have thought that. I'm trying to move you out of the way. Can you guys see that in the way?
Yes, I'm not sure what it is.
Yeah,
There we
there's
go.
some kind
Okay.
of a dialogue box or something. There we go.
Yeah, that's what it was. And you guys aren't seeing it, just me.
No, I
So
saw
this
it.
is a seven. Go ahead, Tom.
We saw it the whole time. There's
Okay.
one more at the right, but that's an improvement. Wow. So I can
This
put
is,
the link to the Rastro photography page when we put
you
this
can,
on
you yes, you can.
drop a link to that in the description.
This is called the Tulip Nebula. This is a cluster. Couple of galaxies, another cluster. This is a Christmas tree nebula. Pretty
Wow.
crazy. Let's see if this is going to let me. Yeah. Nah. Now this dialog box is annoying. And we just did this one. I like the one we just did better than this one. This is the letter Y cluster. I am going to post a better one. I got better data right in here. You can't hardly see it, but there's the tadpoles. There's 2 tadpoles in there. Y'all can see that soon. Another part of there's a Horsehead Nebula, galaxies. I also have acquired the ability recently to, this one. This is the Crab Nebula. Out at Chaco Canyon, there is a reference on there's a drawing of a nebula, come on, Carl, supernova that occurred in, let's see, what's it say here? 1054. And this is it. Kind of cool. Seen in China, seen here, but not in Europe.
Too early
Not
for
sure
the
why.
snort.
Wizard Nebula. Let's see. So I was talking about here's one that I spent a ton of time on. And this is the central star in Orion's sword. Who knew, right?
Wow.
This is multiple shots at 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, 60 seconds, 120 seconds, and 300 seconds, stacked and manipulated to reveal more and more. And they say you've done a good job if you can see in the center. I can't hardly see it here. There's 4 stars in here that are called the trapezium. I can almost see it. So that's a pretty cool one.
There's a
The solar scope I got, we can do some crazy solar photography.
Hey, can you show your video of the eclipse?
Oh, I will, Dave. I will. Lunar photography, I just love. You can do a full disc. or a partial disk. Planetary. I can do him. That's such a cool picture. This is Io just starting across Jupiter. Io and Ganymede. Red spot. The red spot is disappearing. They say it could disappear in our lifetime. How weird is that?
Whoa.
I can get really close to craters on the moon with that planetary system. That crater's 100 kilometers across. You can read in there, it talks about the triangular piece that sloughs off the side. I honestly, how big is that? If that's 100 kilometers, this is what, 5? I mean, I'm seeing pretty crazy stuff. Some people like to display the starless versions. I think it's kind of weird, but it looks cool.
I like the stars.
Yeah, I like the stars.
Just
So
like that.
we had a something real cool happen recently, and these are some stills that I pulled. I came home from 49ers. Some of you know what 49ers is, some of you don't. On the 14th, spent all morning taking these pictures with the solar scope. Every 7 seconds, I took a 300 frame video and put it all together. These are some of the stills. And then I was able to do a time lapse, which is pretty darn cool in its own right. But I got to try to make this full screen here. I know how I'll do that. We'll finish it this way.
Wow.
That's it. I'm done, Dave.
Very cool. Well, that was awesome, Carl. Thanks much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, this was really great. Super interesting. Thank you.
Good.
Yeah, you
I'm
get
glad
some
you
good
all enjoyed it.
tips on exposure. Okay. Well, I'm gonna sign out, but great meeting. We'll try to do it again next month. Thanks, Carl. I'm gonna put this up on the YouTube in a couple days, and I'll put a link to
Okay.
your gallery on there.
All right.
Hey, Dave.
Well, I hope you all
Dave.
enjoyed it and go out and spend lots of money and look at
Yeah,
the stars, man.
Get going. What's that last question there?
It's Tom. Dave, I was just going to request that even though I'm not in New Mexico, keep me on the list.
Oh, okay. I'll try to do that. Okay, I gotta go, guys.
See ya.
Thanks.
Okay. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Cheers, everyone. Bye.
Take care.